Good evening and welcome to the July 2022 Board of Zoning Appeals. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. We will start the meeting off with a prayer and pledge. Troy will lead us in prayer, and Scott in the pledge.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this opportunity to lead our community. We pray you give us discernment and that we would make decisions that honor you, our leadership, and our community. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen. Item number 3 on our agenda tonight is citizens' comments, and I see none at this time. Item number 4 is approval and review of the minutes from the June 16th meeting. Those are in your packet. Hopefully you've had time to review those. If there are any adjustments, if not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I have reviewed the minutes from the last meeting and find them to be in order and move for their approval.
We have a move for approval, a second.
I'll second.
All those in favor of approving the minutes from June 16th, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes have been approved. Next item on our agenda is old business. We have zoning variance from Reagan Smith Associates. I believe this is the one that we reviewed last month and deferred for additional review.
Correct, yeah. So like I said, this was a plan y'all reviewed last month. We gave it a month to defer for allow staff a little bit more time to take a look at the plan and a little bit of discussion about the floodplains that are out at the site. I had a little update on this one just before the meeting. The calculations that we provided you with for last month for 73 spaces. The ordinance is a little, it describes kindergarten and less type of facilities as 1 space per educator plus 1 space per 4 students. It's more of a daycare type setting situation, so it changes the ratio up to 5 spaces, 1 space per 5 students and plus 1 space per employee out there. So that takes down the overall required number of spaces to 62 spaces from the 73 we had before. So it helps the case a little bit here in this aspect at least. So just wanted to make that known. Additionally, this is an item in which this lot is pretty uniform in shape, size, topography. It's fairly flat, and I believe it's even just under 1.5 acres, 1.46 acres in size, so decent size to it. Certainly is a developable lot. There is a little bit of that floodplain, 100-year floodplain present on the property, so any type of development that occurred within that 100-year floodplain has to be compensated for. So you can have it on the site as long as you're not disturbing that area. You don't have to worry about that part of the floodplain. But the building, in which part of the additional documents they provided us before tonight's meeting, y'all have in your packets as well, shows the corner of the building and a little bit of parking area as inside that 100-year floodplain. So that area has to be compensated for. But it is a fairly small space in the grand scheme of things for the overall site and should be easily able to be compensated for. This is a self-created hardship staff has discerned in this situation. It is a vacant lot in this instance, and the applicant is designing this lot, and this hardship of such has been created as part of the applicant designing the lot in such a way. So in that, those are a couple updates that we do have as part of this plan. Staff did also receive an additional plan that, if you so choose to acknowledge the applicant, they will provide you with an updated plan that shows how the site could be configured with those additional parking spaces compared to what we received last month with 45 spaces on there. So that's something additional if y'all so choose to view those. Just a couple quick pictures on this as well. Same pictures from last month at the site. Not much has changed out there. This is one of those aforementioned photos that was submitted by the applicant. So you kind of see that corner of the building in this area, which is part of that 100-year floodplain. Then you have corner of the parking lot as well. So that's the area I was talking about that would have to be compensated for. And then this is a photo showing how the compensation will be done as far as the flood mitigation is concerned. If I'm speaking incorrectly, the applicant can correct me on that one, but that's how I'm discerning this map. So overall, though, that's those are the updates we got on this, and with that, that's all I got.
Okay, thank you. So rather than 73, you're telling me it's 62, so it's reduced by 11.
Correct.
Okay.
And there was also a reduction in the number of employees. Previous application submitted showed 26 employees. There was a revision to that also, now down to 24, so that reduces 2 spaces. Would have been 64, now down to 62.
All right, so 62. So now we're at 17, a variance of 17 spaces essentially. Is that right? It was
Correct.
28 originally, and so 28 minus the 11, 17. Okay. One of the things that we discussed last month was how we stacked up against the other municipalities, and I see in our packet that some information's been given. Brentwood, Franklin, Murfreesboro, Lebanon, and Mount Juliet were all reviewed, and you can kind of see how those stack up. Essentially, we're pretty much right in line. We're kind of right in the middle between all of them. There's Lebanon is lower, and Murfreesboro is a little lower. Mount Juliet's about the same. Brentwood is significantly higher, and Franklin, it's decision on each individual plat. They don't really have a set formula. So we're kind of right in the middle between the 82 and the 40. Now we're at 62, I guess, based on where we're at. So kind of give you an idea of where we are in this grand scheme. I guess at this time I would like to close the Board of Zoning Appeals and open a public hearing for anyone who would like to speak for or against this request. And I understand you may have some new plans, so be your opportunity. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, Wes McGill with Reagan Smith. We're at, we just moved 1500 Medical Center Parkway, Murfreesboro.
Thanks, Wes.
In discussion with Mitch today, I think there was some staff concern with it, was that part of the reason that they were recommending potential disapproval was because they didn't think that at the time, the 72 or 73 spaces could fit. So we just did an exhibit showing that we can fit some of that. If you're fine with that, I can pass these out.
Yeah, sure. You can't have a choice, all right.
All right, thank you. So the purpose of this exhibit is just to show that, you know, if there wasn't the floodplain on there, that we could fit the required 62 spaces. I think we're showing 71 on this exhibit, so the potential to exceed the minimum requirements is on the site as it lays without the floodplain. And I would like to explain a little bit further the floodplain compensation. You'll see we calculated a volume of about 8,000 cubic feet is that volume of floodplain that's on the site. And then as part of the commercial development, we have to raise that finished floor above that floodplain for obvious reasons. So, you know, stormwater is not getting into the building. So we have raised that finished floor, which created more fill in the floodplain. So yeah, our building is over the floodplain line and a small sliver of the parking, but when you add the additional grading, that goes even further into the floodplain. So what we're doing, can we pull the next slide? To compensate for that and to reduce the amount of fill that we are putting in the floodplain is we're anticipating a retaining wall along the building and along the parking lot there. And then that green area is just the area needed to excavate that additional 8,000, or to provide that, you know, equal amount of volume, a little bit over 8,000 cubic feet of volume. And that's all has to be accomplished below the floodplain elevation, which is about I think it was 577 in this area, 576 and a half. And so that's how we calculated that, and that's the best way we can think to accomplish it. We looked at trying to bring that around the corner. Just with the existing stormwater infrastructure, we didn't want to have to tear all that out. And so that's why we're kind of splitting it into two different places and then adding a storm network to the existing that connects the two areas. But happy to discuss, answer questions that y'all might have too. So
So based on the drawing you've given us, quickly counted, essentially if, I don't figure out which way is north here, so I guess it's kind of the southeast corner of the parking lot where you kind of have like 9 or 10 sites kind of sticking down towards Rock Springs Road. That is in that detention area, so that would essentially need to be gone for the floodplain.
That's
And
correct.
without those, you have 62. Is that your understanding as well? That's just a quick count, that's where I come
Yeah,
up with.
without those, we have 62, which
And-
are picked up by the front spaces, are in the other floodplain compensation area
And
along.
Mitch, aren't we saying that 62 is now the required number? So in that case, there is no variance needed.
It's in that green.
It's in the
They
other
can't-
green
They
space.
can't do this because that would, those are
Here?
overlapping those green
Yeah, the
spots.
top green.
Both
So,
of them.
well, this is, but if he gets rid of this isn't, right?
The green space
This
is
is
by
closer.
Medical Center. Or
In this
whatever.
drawing.
Oh,
the
so
spaces
he's
are
saying
closer.
this side, the side on Medical
Or Medical
Park.
Park, sorry.
Yeah, so, okay, I got you.
Yeah, see, this has a big curve. The entranceway has a big curve on their one.
I got you. I'm following you. Oh, I see. It's got the spaces along the road. So you would have to get rid of the ones on the road and on the, basically all the road fronting parking spots.
Correct, yes.
I mean, it does look like you could, for the ones facing Rock Springs, that you could have the furthest right 5 or 6 spaces
Possibly.
possibly in that gap between the two green in the corner there. That's just from a,
Potentially,
Potentially.
yeah, the grading
right.
Yeah.
would probably
You'd have to build it
dictate,
up.
yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for Wes, anybody? I appreciate this extra drawing.
Yep.
Appreciate the effort.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak for or against this request, please come forward. And also, please state your name and address for the record.
Ted Tillman, Primrose School Franchising Company, 3200 Windy Hill Road, Atlanta, Georgia. I don't know if you had read the explanation about the parking in our schools. We have 3 hours of parent drop-off in the morning, 3 hours in the afternoon. As I've stated before, it's not like an elementary school. You don't have all the parents coming at one time. We've done, parking studies, and I think we may have even submitted a parking study where we have about a 6-minute turnaround for a parent to drop their child off. Our studies have shown it's right around 6 minutes. So, one parking stall in an hour could handle 10 parent drop-offs. So our average parking lots are in the 40 to 50 range. And we've been able to live with that and not have any issues with parents parking on the street. When there's special events like graduation, actually the children graduate and go on to elementary school, we rotate it. We don't do it in one night. We have it in 2 or 3 nights, so we don't tax the parking lot because the parents and the grandparents and everybody else wants to come to the graduation. So I'm just requesting that you all consider 45, and that's our median.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions? No? All right, thank you, sir.
Yep.
Anyone else that would like to speak for or against, please come forward. Not seeing any, we'll close the public hearing and reopen the Board of Zoning Appeals for discussion. Kind of marked up the drawing a little bit, and yeah, 45 is what I get with the spots against the building and the 2 in the middle. Our biggest concern from the beginning has been, is there a hardship and how do we justify? Seeing this drawing that shows that they could potentially get them on the lot, I'm a little concerned with it's still 45 spots. It's still tight, but it does look like that without they didn't have to do the drainage easements, they might fit. Or I guess they're easements, I don't know what they are, they're retention ponds for the floodplain, I guess is what they're on.
Open space. So again, my only concern, it kind of mimics what Mitch was saying, is that it doesn't exist. So if the size of the building was smaller by a certain number of square footage, then
Yeah,
they
one-
wouldn't need as many spots.
That is true. One of the factors is that it's not supposed to be something that the applicant has created.
Right.
And by creating the building this size, they are potentially creating the parking dilemma, right? So that's also a factor. I guess I'll leave it open for you guys' thought process.
Where does this building sit in relation to the rear setback? Out of curiosity.
It
Is
looks
this
like
those
it's right
X,
on the
or is
20.
is the building on the 20?
I can't really tell. There's a gray line on this drawing that shows a 20-foot rear setback, but I can't tell if the building is an additional 20 foot off that setback or is it on the setback.
Kind of looks like a sidewalk in between there, maybe.
I wasn't sure. This gray line here, or if this is showing the distance, but it's catty corners, so those are shorter than that one.
I'm assuming there'll be, oh, I see. If you see on this drawing, you can see the playground and stuff is back there. The drawing in the packet shows the playground and other stuff back there. So on this drawing, it just doesn't show, but it's back in here.
I think my concern is the standards for variances. And we've kind of hit all those again today, which was the reason that we delayed this, was to see if there was a hardship that we could use as a reason to work with this. But it seems that the alleged difficulty or hardship is created by the applicant. And therefore, we do find that the variance requested may provide the applicant with the special privilege denied by the ordinance. So I go back to what BZA is to do, and that's to see if a hardship is able to be applied towards receiving a variance. I don't see that just by the basic understanding of there's no hardship causing it, it's simply the design. I feel that that's supposed to be a ordinance request on lowering the number of spots, and that's not something I believe that we're considering. Ours is just if there's a hardship created that we can allow a variance. And I believe they would have to go on to a zoning ordinance change to discuss these number of parking spaces. You know, that would not be through us. That's where I said it's a very fundamental statement, but I feel that BZA does not have a reason to approve this from lack of hardship, and the way they need to go about this is a zoning ordinance change.
Or a design change.
Or design change. I just don't think this board normally considers that. We're considering simply if there's a hardship that is a standard for receiving a variance. I don't see it, and that's what we were allowing the time for, was to see if we had staff come back and say, we do agree there's a hardship there that we should consider, and they've made it clear it's just the design here causing the problem by the applicant, so.
Mitch, can you go back to the previous picture that shows the floodplain? I think you had a red, yeah. So I keep coming back to this picture in my mind. There's two things that keep giving me problems. And one is, if part of the building can be built in the floodplain, why couldn't the additional parking be built in the floodplain? If you're going to put your building in a floodplain, you should be able to put parking spots in a floodplain. And then the second piece is, number 5 in our requirements for the standards for variances. Number 5 is the alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by any person having interest in the party after the effective date of this ordinance. The hardship or difficulty is because of the design. It could be designed to have the required number if it was a smaller building, or if we decided to cut and fill and add parking spots where the floodplain is. So there is a solution that could remedy it. So the hardship, even though I agree that the floodplain adds some complexity, but it could be mitigated. So that's kind of the two things that I keep coming back to, that I just don't, I don't see another way around it. It doesn't meet the requirements for those 2 points. And knowing our track record with people liking the challenges. I don't want to get ourselves in trouble by proving something that we shouldn't. So I'm up to you guys. It's up to you guys that we're aboard. So one of you have a motion or have any further discussion.
May I say something?
Sure. Let me reopen the public hearing. Sure.
Okay, Wes McGill, Reagan Smith
Yeah.
again. I guess the purpose of this exhibit is saying, we've got the ability to put everything on site if there wasn't a floodplain there, right? So I think that's almost the proof that there is a non-self-created hardship. It's like if the floodplain wasn't there, we wouldn't have a hardship. We could build what we wanted to on this size lot.
But the floodplain's not preventing you from building on it. You could build on it. You could cut and fill and make that, put those spots in that area, just like you're putting your building in the floodplain.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
I mean, I could, if you were telling me we're leaving the building out of the floodplain and to do this, I'd have to put parking spots only in the floodplain. That makes more sense to me. But if you're willing to put a building in the floodplain, why wouldn't you put a parking lot in the floodplain?
So you're saying that we should put the building up front and parking behind it?
I'm not
or-
making a design decision at all. I'm just saying that if a corner of the building can go in the floodplain, parking shouldn't be an issue either.
I guess I'm not really following that. It's the parking lots, I don't want to misspeak, I think are allowed to be in floodplains, at least if they're pervious.
Right.
So the only reason for pulling the parking lot up is to match the grade and meet ADA requirements for the elevation of the building above the floodplain.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
This was actually the reason I was trying to go back and just go to fundamentals of our standards for
Yeah.
variance. Because there's no actual hardship, it's your design. It's not a reason for our BZA on our standards to give you
Okay.
an approval for the variance. And that's why I was trying to go back to just those core things of if the design is causing the problem, then the design could be changed. Therefore, for us, it's not a variance. There's no approval for variance under our standards. That's why I was saying it's just more of a zoning ordinance change needs to happen for you to change the amount of parking spaces.
Okay.
But it doesn't give us on our standards how we would normally give a variance because it's not meeting those requirements of one, it shows special privilege because we have denied this to other properties and because you could change the design. I'm not saying it's ideal, but change the size of everything to make it fit on here. It doesn't qualify on our standards for us to give you an approval. That's why I was going back to that because that's the only reason we're coming to that conclusion.
Right.
Okay. All right, that's all I had to say.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. Do we, motion, comments, discussion?
I'll go ahead and get a motion out there to start discussion in case we need. I'm going to move for denial of the request due to lack of hardship.
We have a motion for denying the additional parking places due to lack of hardship found or lack of hardship not created by the applicant. Any second?
I'll second.
We have a second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of denial, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion is denied. Or approved. The denial is approved. Double negative. All right, next item on our agenda is new business. We have two special exceptions, Henry Wayne Bain, Eugene Drive, and Samuel Guidon at Bunker Lane. We'll start with Mr. Bain.
This is a special exception request to allow a detached accessory apartment at 6007 Eugene Drive. Property is zoned R1. It's just under 3 acres in size at 2.91 acres. The proposed accessory apartment will be located nearby the existing principal structure. The applicant is intending to include a garage, bedroom, kitchen, full bathroom, and a laundry room. The total of the detached accessory structures on this property may not exceed 1,200 square feet. The applicant would be required to submit a variance request if the structure were to exceed the allowed 1,200 detached accessory square foot maximum for this lot. So each lot has a required maximum number of square footage of detached structures, which we've seen variances for in the past come through. So that's just what this lot size equates to with the 1,200 square feet. It appears as though there's an existing detached structure on this lot, which would count against the remaining square footage for all detached structures the applicant may have. Per the application submittal, the applicant states the purpose of this addition is to create an independent living space for a family member, and the family member has already been residing in the home, but this would create an opportunity for an independent living situation for that family member. Section 7.060B of the zoning ordinance detail requirements for authorizing special exceptions, and they are detailed below. A conditional use permit shall be provided the board finds that it is so designed, located, and proposed to be operated so the public health, safety, and welfare be protected. Staff finds the proposed use of a detached accessory apartment would not negatively affect the health, safety, and welfare of the public, will not adversely affect other property in the area. Staff finds the proposed use should not adversely affect other property in the surrounding area, is within provisions of special exceptions as set forth in the ordinance. Section 5.051.1C lists accessory apartments as a special exception within this district. Conforms to all applicable provisions of this ordinance for the district in which it is to be located, as well as provisions cited in section 7.060 and 7.061, and is necessary for public convenience and location plan. Staff finds that the site may be able to conform to all provisions of municipal zoning ordinances listed in criteria review section 7.060C, which we will go through now. Ingress and egress to the property. Access to the site would utilize the existing driveway off Eugene Drive. Off-street parking. Staff finds that the lot would provide sufficient space for off-street parking due to the size of this lot. Refuse and service areas. Refuse collection would proceed in the same manner as currently. Utilities. The location does have access to all the necessary utilities at this time. Number 5 is not applicable regarding screening. Signs, if any, and proposed exterior lighting with reference to glare, traffic safety, economic effect, and compatibility and harmony with properties in the district. Staff finds the proposed detached accessory dwelling unit should fit the compatibility with the properties in the same district with reference to those effects. Required yard and no other open space. Staff finds that this yard has the necessary yard and open space to allow for a detached accessory dwelling unit. General compatibility with adjacent properties and the other property in the district. Staff finds that the use may not be compatible with adjacent properties due to other lots and they are not having a detached accessory apartment on the same parcel as the principal structure. Number 9 is not applicable. In conclusion, staff finds this lot would provide sufficient space to allow for a detached accessory apartment due to the size of the property. Maximum allowed detached accessory square footage for this lot is 1,200 square feet. Any detached structures and future structures would count against the remaining square footage. Staff will need the square footage of all detached structures prior to issuance of a building permit to verify all these numbers, make sure they're adding up correctly. The use should not negatively affect any of the surrounding properties. If approved, staff recommends putting a condition on the request that the applicant is required to pay all applicable fees associated with an accessory dwelling apartment, including but not limited to the Rutherford County Development Tax, Town of Smyrna impact fees, code inspection fees, etc. Staff would also recommend adding a condition that the building not be used for rental purposes. This is standing on the sidewalk on Eugene Drive looking at the property. As you can see, the front of the property is fairly well, has a lot of vegetation up front. This is the driveway that is leading up to the property. Just a little bit further up the driveway looking up towards the house, and you still really can't see the house even right now. And this is a aerial picture of that property. That's all I got for you.
Do you know where on the property this is?
Not exactly, that's why I kind of left it open. As
Okay.
far as it's gonna be nearby the house, not exactly sure where, but somewhere nearby the house.
Okay. All right. Any questions for Mitch before we go to public hearing? All right, this time we'll close the Board of Zoning Appeals, open a public hearing for anyone who would like to speak for or against this request. If you'd like to speak for or against, please state your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you for what you do, by the way. My name is Henry Wayne Bain. I live at 6007 Eugene Drive in Smyrna. We built that place probably about 18 years ago. My sister-in-law, who previously resided in Alabama. Her husband passed away, and she's been living with us for the past 2 years. And she needs some independent living, so do we. But she also needs some caretaking also. She's a past cancer survivor. And so we wanted to add a living space for her close to the house. We've actually got a lot with everything stubbed up down front. I've got gas down there and sewage and everything, but that's just another yard for me to take care of. I can guarantee you it will not be rented. It's too close to my house for me to have renters. But I would like to have a little bit of independent living and be able to help each other as best we can. And that's why I'm asking for special exceptions. Actually, there won't be a driveway, additional driveway going through there. She'll use our same driveway and come into the back of it. And she's been having the same address. She currently gets her mail at 6007 Eugene Drive. I don't see that we'd be using any more utilities, water or electric than what we've been using because she's been living with us for the past 2 years. So, and I'm not wanting really another address change. And
Gotcha.
it will not be used, I'm gonna say that again, it will not be used for no Airbnb or nothing but just for family.
Understood. All right. Any questions for Mr. Bain?
Approximate location on the property of the residence,
Where's the new place going?
the new build?
Well, let's see, my property's coming up here, here's my house.
Yep.
And right back here, like I said, I'll patio from me to you, not your her porch.
Gotcha.
So for emergency cases, we can take care of each other if we need each other.
Understood. Okay. All right. Any other questions for Mr. Bain? All right. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else that would like to speak for or against this request? Not seeing anyone, we'll close the public hearing and reopen the Board of Zoning Appeals. Mitch, I couldn't help but notice a couple of times in the staff report you mentioned accessory structure square footage. So I want to make sure we highlight that a lot this size is required to have no more than 1,200 square foot detached structure. This would be counted as part of that detached structure, is my understanding. So the total roof size would have to be less than 1,200 square feet, if it's my understanding. Is that right?
Assuming there's no other detached structures on the property, yes.
Yeah, total for the lot. I didn't mean for this building.
Correct.
Yeah, total for the lot.
So does a carport count as a detached
Yes.
roof structure?
Yeah, so that would be the only thing, Mr. Bain, that you would have to make sure when you're pulling your permits and your design that you're staying under that 1,200 number. Total roof area detached from your primary house.
Any?
Yeah, and it includes apparently the carport. If the carport was attached, it doesn't include it, but if it's detached, then it counts as well. So that's just a factor you have to consider.
Do what now?
Excuse me, sir, Wayne Bain,
Yep.
we don't have a carport attached, I was putting our garage in
Is
her house.
that's a garage? We can't tell from the picture right beside the
Part
driveway
of the
there.
design of the house, I added that on because we're all getting older, and I
Yeah.
don't want her getting out in the rain, walking, stuff like that, and so she can get out and walk right in her house when she gets out of the car for safety,
But it
a
is
number of
detached
reasons.
from the house, is that correct?
Yes.
It is detached
The
from the
current
house,
carport
correct?
that we have right here is detached from the house.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
okay. Yeah, I could see where the cars are, yeah.
So she would go right through there, right around my backyard, right into her garage.
Okay, as long as you understand that the 1,200 square foot is
Total.
the maximum you can have on the property that's detached. And any structure counts as part of that.
Of any structure.
Any structure, even if it's an outbuilding, any detached structure counts in your total 1,200 square feet.
Wow, I'll probably exceed that now.
Well, you may be, but that doesn't mean that it's legal. Yeah, you may be, it just means no one's challenged it or sent you a letter, right? 1,200 is the limit, you may be over that limit now, I'm not sure.
And that's total with everything?
Everything, all accessory structures.
Wow.
Yes. Ask if it's attached to the house.
If it's attached to the house, it does not count in that figure.
What if we just attach it to the house?
If it's attached
I
to
don't
the
I don't
house,
have
then
an issue with that either.
yeah, if it's attached to the house by breezeway or anything, then it's not considered detached structure at that point.
Okay, so I can just pull a permit and have it as an addition instead of a separate place and just attach it to the house? Is that permissible?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you, sir. That's what we'll do, because again, I'm looking
Yeah,
at the rental
that
property.
really, what we're discussing here is the approval to add an accessory structure.
Yes, sir.
So, we'll discuss that and make a motion on that, but because staff mentioned this several times in the report, I wanted to make sure you understood that that's an additional requirement that you'll have to make sure you meet when you do your permit.
I'll talk to my contractor and
yeah.
we'll redesign the plans and.
Just make sure
and attach it
whatever
to the
you're,
house.
whatever you're doing, make sure you're talking to the codes department, permit department to make sure you're all on the same page.
Absolutely.
Before you start pouring footers and get too far down the path, right? That's,
right on.
make sure you're
Absolutely.
doing the right thing, so you
Yep.
don't have to move something later, is all
I
we're trying
agree,
to do.
sir. Yeah, I agree.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so back to the point is accessory structure, which is all we're actually considering. This is in line with what we have approved previously for several other applicants. The lot size is definitely large enough to support it. There is no side or rear setbacks that would be a factor. I don't see a concern. Do you see any concerns that I'm not seeing?
I find the request to be in order, Mr. Chairman.
All right, do we have a motion?
I'll move for the approval of the special exception to allow the detached accessory apartment, and I want to make sure we include all staff conclusion notes, including the recommendation of the conditional that the application will be required to pay all applicable fees associated with the dwelling unit, and recommend adding the condition that the building not be used for rental purposes.
So we have a motion to approve the request, including staff's comments, which include it not being used for any rental purposes. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion has been approved. Thank you, Mr. Bain. Next item on our agenda is Samuel Guyton, 5007 Bunker Lane, also a special exception. Mitch?
Yeah, very similar request here. This is a request for a accessory apartment, except this would be located in the basement of the existing home. This property is zoned PRD. It's within that Woodmont subdivision. Lot size is about 11,835 square feet. The proposed accessory apartment would be located in the basement, which is currently just partially finished. The applicant's intending to include 2 bedrooms, a full kitchen, and a laundry area, in addition to the existing full bathroom that's existing at this time. Per the application submittal, the applicant states the purpose of this addition is to create an independent living space for family members. Section 7.060B of the zoning ordinance detail requirements for authorizing special exceptions, and those are listed below. A conditional use permit shall be provided the board finds that it is so designed, located, and proposed to be operated so the public health, safety, and welfare will be protected. Staff finds the proposed use of an accessory apartment would not negatively affect the health, safety, and welfare of the public, will not adversely affect other property in the area. Staff finds the proposed use should not negatively affect other property in the area. It is within provisions of special exceptions as set forth in the ordinance. The Woodmont subdivision is a PRD and does not address accessory apartments within the zoning for it. Therefore, it's neither allowed nor disallowed by special exception. Conforms to all applicable provisions of this ordinance for the district in which it is located, to be located, as well as provisions cited in sections 7.060 and 7.061, and is necessary for public convenience and location planned. Staff finds this site may be able to conform to all provisions of the municipal zoning ordinance listed in criteria review, section 7.060C. Ingress and egress to the property. Access to the site would utilize the existing driveway off of Bunker Lane. Off-street parking. Staff finds this lot would provide sufficient space for off-street parking. The garage on this site does sit about 35 foot from the curb, and there is no sidewalk on this property, so adequate parking is sufficient for 4 parking spaces in the driveway at this site. Refuse and service areas. Refuse collection will proceed in the same manner as currently. Utilities. This location has access to all the necessary utilities. Number 5 is not applicable regarding screening and buffering. 6, signs, if any, and proposed exterior lighting. Staff finds that the proposed accessory dwelling unit should fit the compatibility with properties in the same district in reference to the above effects. Required yard and other open space. Staff finds this yard has the necessary yard and open space to allow for an accessory dwelling unit. General compatibility with adjacent properties. Staff finds that the use may be compatible with adjacent properties in the area. There was previously an approved accessory apartment within the Woodmont subdivision past couple years ago in the same situation. It was located in the basement of the principal structure, so nothing else has been added onto the property. Number 9 is not applicable in this case, and staff finds that this lot would provide sufficient space to allow for an accessory apartment due to the addition being located within the existing home. The use should not negatively impact the surrounding properties, and the driveway has adequate parking for 4 vehicles. If approved, staff recommends putting a condition on the request that the applicant be required to pay all applicable fees associated with the accessory dwelling unit, which include but are not limited to the Rutherford County Development Tax, Town of Smyrna Impact fees, code inspection fees, etc. Staff would also recommend adding a condition that the building not be used for rental purposes. This is just the picture of the front of the house taken from the road, showing those, 2 cars deep fitting in here, and you can easily fit another 2 cars on the side of it. And then just an aerial picture of the house.
Thank you, Mitch. Comments, questions for Mitch? Anyone? We will close the Board of Zoning Appeals and open a public hearing for anyone who would like to speak for or against this request. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Samuel Guyton. I live at 5007 Bunker Lane, and this is my property that's being displayed at this time. My daughter recently got married a couple of months ago, and due to hardship, they're renting now. But I want to provide housing for them so they can get a foot up on, their lives together. My basement is approximately the same footprint as my house. We could easily provide, 1,800 square feet in the basement with 2 bedrooms, adding a kitchen, and bedrooms have easement and closet. And I just want to do this for my daughter and her new husband.
Excellent. Congratulations on the
Thank you.
marriage. All right, any questions for Mr. Guyton? None? Thank you, sir. Anyone else that would like to speak for or against? Not seeing anyone else in the room, we'll close the public hearing and reopen the Board of Zoning Appeals. I started that sentence before I realized there was no one else left.
What about those guys?
Yeah, well, they don't count.
We don't want to hear them talk.
They're staff, they don't count.
They don't want to come and talk? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they already know we're talking about them. All right, so we've got another accessory structure. The good thing about this one, I think, is it doesn't affect footprint of the lot. It's underneath the existing house in the basement. Mitch mentioned several times the 4 vehicles, and for you guys may or may not know that that is something that we have added to some of our zoning requirements recently, is that you must have 4 vehicles in the driveway. Garage space does not count as that, so this meets that anyway.
And there's no sidewalk to interfere with that for.
That's right. So the parking is definitely adequate. If he was to add 2 more adults with 2 more cars, he still has room for 4 cars in his driveway. So that's not really a concern. I know Woodmont, the other question that we usually have is it approved or does he have an HOA? In this case, they don't mention it, and one's been previously approved, so we should be good there. I believe Woodmont is on sewer, so there's no septic concerns, so I don't have any concerns unless you guys do.
No, and I believe this is right down from the pool. This is going to be quite the setup.
Yes.
Right down from the pool.
Grandkids will like that.
Which is a whole
All right.
other thing.
Yeah. Needs more bedrooms. All right, any motion?
I'll make a motion to approve with the condition that they pay all the applicable fees associated with the dwelling unit, as well as that they do not use it for a rental purpose.
We have a motion which includes staff comments for fees and non-rental. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved. Thank you, Mr. Guyton. Number 7 on our agenda is staff comments or any other business. Mitch is all good, so number 8 is adjournment. We'll stand adjourned.